Now we're getting to the end of 2024, and it seems like most people have come to the agreement that webcams are just going to be poor quality. And if you want a higher quality experience, you're really going to have to cough up quite a bit of money for something like a mirrorless camera or something of that sort. But what a lot of people haven't really been thinking about is that there are plenty of companies making very small cameras with great sensors in them that can be kind of transitioned from being, for example, an action camera into a webcam and can do a really, really good job with that. And Insta360 is one of those companies. Insta360 recently released an update to their original Link webcam, which is the Link 2C and the Link 2. Now, today we're going to be going over the 2C, and I'm also going to talk about the tripod that they sent along with it. But we're going to go ahead and compare this to some other webcams. I'm going to go through the software. We're going to take a look at the quality, going to see what kind of things we can adjust, how well this webcam can perform. I'm going to go ahead and talk about some pros and cons, and then I'll give my final recommendation at the end. Then next week, I will be going over the Link 2. So if you do want to go ahead and check out that review, get subscribed, and this one will be coming out soon afterwards. But today, let's talk about the Link 2C. The Link 2 and the Link 2C have the exact same camera sensor, so the video quality that's going to come out of these two cameras is also going to be the exact same. The only difference between the two is that the Link 2 has the gimbal and the Link 2C does not. That's also reflective in the price. The Link 2C is $149.99, whereas the Link 2 is $199.99. Even at those price points, they are providing a lot of features at the sub $200 mark. They are much less expensive than things like the Elgato Facecam Pro. So if this sensor can really show some good quality, then this is going to be a really great value product for what you're getting. Now, Insta360 did send me the Link 2C and the tripod for the purpose of this review. They have not paid me for this video, and they have no input on the actual opinions that I provide in this review whatsoever. But if you do want to go ahead and support the channel, there will be links down in the description below where you can go ahead and check it out for yourself. Those will be affiliate links, so they do support the channel. And once we get closer to the end of the video, I will talk about some special offers that Insta360 is providing for my viewers. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get these things unboxed. All right, so we've got the 2C and its bigger brother. If you do want to see the review video for this, get subscribed. This video will be coming out soon as well. So we've got the 2C and the mini tripod. The box here is pretty good. We get to see a little bit of information about it being in 4K resolution, the half-inch sensor, AI noise canceling, true focus. It tells us what's in the box here: the camera, the magnetic mount, a cable, USB-C to A adapter, a recognition marker, the guide, and a warranty card. Let me get a little bit more information on features like the auto framing, the whiteboard recognition, smart control, and the natural bokeh that you can add on there. So let's go ahead and get this guy open. And there we go. So we have the camera. It is really nice and small. I kind of like that. It's nicer having the smaller cameras, especially when you're going to be using this with something like a laptop. The bigger the camera, the more it kind of sticks out, and the more likely it's going to fall off. So it's nice that it's nice and small. We will get that unwrapped in a second. We have the base, and wow, this is quite heavy actually. This is all made out of metal. It's the magnetic base, so it works with magnets, or it has a threaded insert there as well that you can put onto a tripod or something. But it is very well built. Like this thing's quite heavy. So we'll get that unwrapped as well. We have our quick start. We have some stickers from Insta360 there. We have our quick start guide. Pretty big little manual there actually. We have a warranty card. And then we have the alignment tracking stickers as well. We also have a pretty lengthy USB-C to USB-C cable. I'd say maybe it's about 5 feet. It's not close to my wingspan, which is about just over 6 feet. I'd say maybe 4 or 5 feet. So pretty good length. We have the adapter, the USB-A to C adapters so that if you don't have an additional USB-C port, you can just use this adapter to get plugged in. And that's it for the box. The nice thing I'm really happy to see in this box, very little plastic. There's some plastic covering the camera. There's some plastic covering the stickers here, and the other stickers are plastic, but the rest of this is all cardboard. There's not a ton of plastic in here. I'm pretty happy to see that. And let's go ahead, get the camera uncovered. All right, so let's go ahead and get this camera uncovered here. So we'll just peel this off. And we've got our little camera. Now, there's not a lot going on here for the camera itself. We have a privacy switch here, which will actually cover the lens, which is really nice actually that it's an actual full cover. So that's really nice to see. The design is actually pretty cute. We have a speaker, and I guess the microphone might be up there as well. We have our USB-C port on the back. And other than that, there's not really much going on here. Pretty nice looking little camera. We have our stand. We got to peel this off here. And the camera works really well by just sticking it right on the top. It's magnetic. You just stick it on like that. I'm wondering what's the magnetic part. Okay, so really cool thing about this is the actual camera itself is the magnetic one. Let me see if I can find a piece of metal around here without ruining something. So I've got the top of my microphone boom arm here, piece of metal, and the camera sticks right on there. So I think it is assisted by the magnet on the stand, because there is a magnet on the stand, right? So this is definitely the stronger magnet of the two. But it is pretty sweet that you could, if you wanted to, you could stick this camera onto other things and kind of use it in a little bit of a unique way. It's not super strong, so it does move around quite a bit, but having that's nice. And unfortunately, the stand itself on the actual bottom part is not magnetic, so you can't get super creative with that. But the stand is quite nice. You know, you got the magnet here. You have this extra articulation so that when it's on top of something, you can change how much the camera is looking up or down. Really great if you want to do the desk mode, right? You can have the camera facing straight down, and you don't have to try to slide this base over and change the way that it's kind of leaned up against your monitor here. So I really like that little addition. That's pretty nice. And overall, I think the build quality of this thing so far feels absolutely fantastic. I'm actually very impressed here. All right, so here we are in the software. It is a really nice just piece of UI here. So we have our frame rates. As you can see, I'm using 1080p 60. By default, you will not have 1080p 60. You have to enable the portrait resolution high frame rate mode. It'll just quickly restart the camera, and then you can go ahead and do 1080p 60 if you want, or you can do 4K 30. In here, we have a lot of options. We can use all of the different modes. So we have the auto framing. With the 2C, there's no gimbal. So the auto framing is going to do a partial zoom. So it's going to do a 1.2 zoom, and it is now going to try to move the camera around to focus on my face. You can also change what it's going to focus on using the smart composition. So you can use head, half body, whole body. So that's pretty cool. But if you are going to be doing a lot of movement, I don't think the 2C is going to be the camera for you, because it is a stationary camera. So it's only going to be trying to use the framing. So if you have auto framing off, this is the only section that the camera is going to be able to move you around in. So if I move anywhere over this way, it's not going to be able to see me, and it's not going to be able to move to me. So do keep that in mind. The auto framing is great if you're someone who shifts a lot in your seat, or if you do have like a particular section that you like moving towards, that's perfectly great. They do say that you can do up to 2 times zoom without losing quality. So you can get quite a bit of movement in there, especially if you're really far back from your camera. That is pretty nice. You also have presets available. So I can go ahead and do like a crazy zoom, and then I can go to a standard one, and you can set up a whole bunch. I think you have a maximum of 7 presets that you can set up, which is really, really nice. Quick correction, when I was playing around with the Link 2, I realized you actually have 10 presets, not 7, so that's nice to have an extra 3. Now for the other modes, they have the whiteboard modes, and unfortunately I don't have a whiteboard or anything, but the software will try to determine where a whiteboard is and focus on that. You can also use those alignment stickers that we saw in the unboxing. Those are all pretty handy. And then for desk view with the 2C, you're gonna have to probably physically move your camera. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna angle the camera down a little bit and then turn on desk view. So with desk view, it's gonna be really important to do your vertical correction. So right now I'm on this correction. It seems pretty decent. If you have it all the way off, you're gonna see a little bit of an angle, but it's still not bad. I do have the camera almost pointed directly downwards. The more that you set this up, the more it's going to distort the image and really zoom in, and like it's making my hands look really weird. The 2C is not going to be the best solution for this just because it does not move. So you're just going to be moving that mount. Here's an image of what the camera looks like while it's pointing down on my desk. It's not bad. It looks great, and it's something that I think I would use quite a bit, but just do keep that in mind. So in terms of the effects, I have everything right now currently set to all of the defaults, and I think this is probably one of the better webcams in terms of all of its auto settings. It looks really, really good. You can play around with all of these as much as you want. As we mentioned, HDR is available across all video formats, which is very unique for this camera. A lot of other ones will only have HDR available in specific video formats and not all. It's nice that this is available for you. I don't personally like the look of the HDR, so I'm not going to be turning it on, but it does add a higher dynamic range with the light and the dark. So do keep that in mind. And you have a couple of color presets. So if you use different lighting in particular rooms, if your office maybe has different lighting than your office at home, you can do different color presets to match with that. But honestly, I think the auto looks really, really good. So I'm not really particularly needing to change a lot of the color settings. So with the background makeups and filters, one thing to keep in mind is if you are going to leverage these are going to turn the camera into a virtual camera, which means you're going to max out at 1080p 30, and certain settings won't be able to be available in 4K like the bokeh. So I'm going to go ahead and do the blur, and blur is very, very common in work environments. You know, you just blur out your background a little bit. You can change your intensity, which is nice. I'm bald, so I'm like the perfect test subject for these things. They don't have to really work around too much hair, and it does a pretty good job. Now the bokeh is really nice because as you can see in my room, I am not really far away from that wall behind me, so the f1.8 aperture is struggling a little bit to have a natural bokeh behind me. But I can go ahead and use an artificial bokeh, and that actually looks really, really good. Now you can see around my head, you can see some of the areas where it's struggling to figure out what is me and what is the background. But overall, I think it does a pretty good job, and I'm pretty happy with it. You also have things like backgrounds where everybody knows that maybe your room behind you is an absolute mess and you just want to hide it completely. Now there's also makeup filters, which we're not really going to care about, but they are pretty quick to enable, and they just seem to adjust a lot of the coloring on your face. Uses AI to try to identify different areas like your cheeks, your lips, your eyes, and apply different looks. And then filters are very similar. They're just changing the overall color profile of the camera. You know, we have the Mexico mode where it's just going to turn everything into a sepia color. And, you know, if this is something that you're into, then go ahead. Now in the more section, we have the ability to turn on and off the gestures. So I had it turned off because I use my hands a lot and I was turning on the gestures by accident quite a bit. But the nice thing is you can determine which ones are turned on with gestures. So for example, if you use your palms a lot and you put your palms up beside your face a lot, you want to turn off the auto framing palm gesture because you're going to be doing this a lot and it's going to turn on and off that autofocus or the auto framing, sorry, automatically. So now if I have it back on and I do this, now it's going to be on my face. So if I'm like, yeah, you know, we did like 5 or 10, it's going to get really confused. It's going to be turning this feature on and off quite a bit. So I highly suggest you take a look at these and see if you want to turn them off. The audio modes, we'll go over those when we start testing the microphone, and you can do horizontal flipping, vertical flipping, and then the modes that we saw in the resolutions at the beginning of the video here. Now that we've gone through the software, let's go ahead and get the Link2C plugged into my recording computer. We'll go ahead and compare it to a few other cameras, and we'll also check that microphone audio quality. All right, so we have the 4 cameras set up, and I tried to get them as close to each other as possible. So the options that we have are the A6400 mirrorless camera with the Sigma 16mm lens on it. We have the OBSBot Tiny 2 Lite. We have the Insta360 Link2C, and then we have the Logitech C922. Now, let me know if you can identify which one is which. Some of them may be a little bit easier than others. I will give you a couple of seconds to do that. Again, I tried to get all of the settings as similarly as possible. It's really hard to match color across different camera sensors, but I did try my best. But honestly, the camera looks really, really good. If you haven't been able to pick it out now, it is this one. And I think the camera looks really, really crisp. It does a very good job with detail. The coloring is pretty decent, and I'm sure if I spent a lot more time, it would be even better. One of the really nice things is it actually saved the setting of the exposure that I had set on my other computer when I plugged it into this computer. So that's really, really nice that it did bring that one over. The coloring looks great, but the detail looks fantastic. And getting things right raw out of camera, I think the quality is really, really good. I'm going to go ahead and switch to just the camera in a little bit. We're going to go ahead and compare all of these options in a dark setting now to see how they all perform and to see really how the Link2C performs in a less than ideal setting where I don't have all of these lights on. All right, so this is with all of the lights off in my office. All we have is the natural light coming through the window. And again, I think the camera looks really, really good. It is still keeping a lot of that detail. It doesn't seem to be struggling in terms of the exposure. It doesn't seem to be making it extremely noisy. And I'll put this full screen in a second so that we can look at just specifically the Link2C. But I think it's doing a really good job. All of the cameras right now are on their auto ISO settings, even the mirrorless camera. And I mean, I think it's doing a really good job. Obviously, the C922 has the biggest disadvantage. It's a much, much older camera. It's maxed out at 1080p 30, and it just doesn't do really well in low light settings. But the other cameras are doing well, and the Link2C I think looks fantastic. So let's go ahead and get that thing full screen. We'll take a look at how it looks in the dark lighting that we have right now. We'll go back to the regular lighting, take a look at it a little bit more in detail. We'll do some zooming and stuff, and then we'll test that microphone as I mentioned. Here we are. This is the Link2C in full screen and in this room without any lighting. I think it looks really good. It's not the craziest quality camera, but I think it's doing a really good job considering there is no light. They do advertise the fact that it does use AI to help improve low light settings. And I think this is pretty good considering, again, there is literally no lights on. It is just the window, and the window is covered by a sheer sheet. So if I open that up all the way, we have even more lighting, but I feel like it's a lot harsher, which is why I usually have those sheer lights on. But I think this is doing a really good job keeping a lot of the detail, keeping the colors relatively accurate, and I think it does a really good job. Now we're back with the studio lighting, and I think, again, the quality looks really, really good. I am very impressed with this camera. I think it does a great job. We're going directly from the camera. We're not using a virtual camera or anything. I'm using the camera as its own source, not doing it through the software. And I think this looks great. Let's go ahead and take a look at some zooming. So if I go ahead and zoom in here, that's a pretty big zoom, and I think the camera still looks great. It doesn't look overly pixelated. It doesn't look overly grainy. If you did need to zoom in on something, I think it does a pretty good job. One of the really big things that they also talk about is their autofocus. So they talk about their phase detection autofocus, which allows it to really easily change focus on different objects. So let's go ahead and take a look. So if I bring my Bowser up to the front here, it focuses on him really, really quickly. And then as soon as I go ahead and drop him down, it's focusing back on me. So I think it does a really good job of identifying what's in the center of the frame, especially if it doesn't identify a face. I can tell that if I kind of drop him down, it's going to start focusing on my face. But if we go back to the Bowser himself, it does a pretty good job focusing on there. It does cut in and out a little bit. Again, you're going to have to be a little bit more focused on not having your face in there, because as soon as it notices my eyes, I think it tries to focus on my face, and we can go ahead and do that. Now with the autofocus, they don't have the ability to change it away from a face autofocus to something like a global autofocus, where it's not trying to find a face in particular, it's just trying to find whatever object is most present in front of the camera. The only thing you're able to adjust is the fact that it's either autofocus or manual focus. You can't choose the type. So that can be something where I think they might be able to improve that with software in the future. Being able to switch between those focus types would be really nice, especially if you're using this camera for things like what I'm doing right now, where I would like it to try to focus on objects a little bit more than my face. That'd be a really nice feature. All right, so this is editing Dimitri here, and I just wanted to show off the 4K 30 mode, which we're in right now, where normally I would prefer a higher frame rate camera like the 1080p 60 over the 4K 30, just because I like the smoothness of the camera over the higher fidelity. But when I was playing around with the Link 2, I was using the 4K 30 and it just looked so good, as you can see here. I'll put a side-by-side of me talking now and me talking in the 1080p 60 modes, and it's quite the big difference. And with the really good lighting, it makes a huge difference. I think it looks great. And we're at the 1x zoom. If we go all the way into the 4x zoom, even then, I'm still looking pretty good. It's not looking overly pixelated. I think this looks really, really good. I'm overly impressed with it. If you're streaming at 60 frames per second, you can have your camera at 30 frames, as most people do, and you'll still look perfectly fine. The autofocusing also works really great. As you can see here, we have Bowser again. It focuses on him really quick, and I can get him pretty close, and it focuses in on him really well. And then as soon as I drop him, it moves that focus over. The focus is quite impressive. Again, I do just wish that there was an ability to change the way that the focusing works, but the focusing works great. Look how quick it focuses in and focuses back. I think it's working really, really well. Let's go ahead and see how it looks with the lights off real quick. And this is with all the lights off on auto mode, 4K 30, and I still think it looks pretty good. Overall, really, really impressed with the sensor. Like, the sensor just continues to impress me over and over again, and I think this looks great. So now let's go ahead and test how the microphone sounds on this camera. It's not going to be in the most ideal situation because this room does not have any soundproofing, but it is going to be pretty reflective of the way that most people are going to have their rooms. Most people do not soundproof their rooms, especially for work and stuff like that. So it's going to be a relatively accurate, but it's not going to be an ideal situation. Now, this is what the microphone sounds like from the Link 2C with voice focus on. What voice focus mode is going to do, it's going to try to focus entirely on my voice. It's going to try to block out any background noise. Now, unfortunately, this is only a toggle. You cannot determine the range or the intensity of this. So it's either just on or off. But I think it sounds pretty good when I listen to the recordings. It does a pretty good job. It doesn't make my voice sound too tinny. It definitely sounds different than my multi-$100 microphone, but I think it does a really good job. And if you're going to be using this for work especially, I think this is more than good enough. And the voice focus feature is extremely powerful at getting rid of a lot of those background noises like air conditioners, vacuums, pets, outside noises, and even clapping, where you shouldn't be able to hear the clapping that's happening right beside my face. And we'll cut between the two microphones so you can hear the difference, but I clap pretty loud, and I couldn't hear a single thing when I was going through the editing. So now this is the microphone with voice suppression on, and what voice suppression is going to do is it's going to try to block out as much of the other background talking voices and noises that are going on in the background. So if you're in something like a cafe or you're in an office where there's a lot of people talking, this may be able to help. It seemed to do a pretty decent job, but it does increase the amount of unnaturalness that my voice sounds like, because it's just trying to use AI to block out all that background noise. And now this is the music balance mode. So what it's trying to do is it's getting rid of all of that noise suppression that it's trying to do, and it's just trying to keep all of the audio as normalized as possible. So it's trying to keep my voice and any other noise kind of at a same level, so that I'm not overpowering the music, so you can still hear the music, but the music's also not overpowering me, so that you can still hear me. Again, I think it does an okay job. The music's fading out now, but I think it does a pretty decent job. And again, my voice doesn't sound overly processed or anything. So, in terms of webcam microphones, I think this is doing a pretty good job. Now, let's talk about the things that I like and don't like about the Link 2C. The first thing I like is the build quality. The build quality of the actual camera is amazing. The privacy shutter is a really nice feature. Everything is built really, really well. This mount is absolutely amazing. And the tripod is really helpful as well. If you are going to be doing a lot of portrait stuff, highly do suggest you get the tripod because it makes that kind of stuff a lot easier. But the build quality overall is really, really good. Next up is the video quality, and I think this thing is punching well above its weight. You could basically replace a mirrorless or DSLR camera depending on your use case with one of these cameras, and you can use it in multiple environments. You can use it for work, you can use it for content creation, you can use it for streaming. So that is a really, really nice feature, and I think it does a really good job as we've been able to see. Now, next up, the sensor is really, really good. I am very impressed with this camera. It has been doing a really, really good job in multiple different lighting environments, different purposes like work versus streaming versus content creation. I think this is a really, really good option, and its value is absolutely insane. $149.99 for this is a really, really good option to replace almost anything. And if you can get it covered by work, even better. But this just excels in almost all those different environments, all the different lighting environments. It does a really good job. Overall, really, really impressed. That value is just absolutely huge. And I think that's probably the biggest pro for this is that its value is so good. The quality is fantastic. Really impressed with that. Now, if there's a few things that I have to complain about, one of them is just going to be, I wish that the magnet on the 2C specifically was a little bit stronger. I've already been playing around with the Link 2 and its magnet on the actual device itself is stronger, and sometimes I do struggle to get the mount here to adjust because the magnet on here just doesn't seem as good, whereas the Link 2, it just pulls on everything, and that magnet's really, really strong. So I do wish the magnet was a little bit stronger, although it still does work pretty well. And the only other thing I would like to improve is just granular control in the software. I wish that some of the toggleable options had some more granular control. For example, the noise suppression, I wish you were able to change the intensity a little bit. And I wish that the autofocus had additional modes for what it's going to try to prioritize. So I wish you had the ability to choose facial prioritization so that it just always tries to focus on your face. Or if it just does a global autofocus where it's just going to try to focus on the item that it thinks is in the prime area of the frame, so that when you're doing things that you don't want it to focus on your face, it will do that a little bit better. But those things can be fixed in software in the future, so hopefully that they do that. Overall, super, super happy with this camera. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Insta360 is actually going to be providing some awesome benefits for my viewers if you do want to pick up the camera for yourself. Now, if you buy from the official Insta360 store, they're going to be providing FlexiCare warranty as a gift. And if you want to buy it from Amazon, they're going to be providing a tripod for the first 20 buyers who buy using my links down in the description below. If you do use those, they do help support the channel, so I really do appreciate it. And I hope that these gifts help make the option of buying one of these a little bit easier. And now my final thoughts. I think the Link 2C is an incredible camera, and I definitely think that you should choose it over the Link 2 if you don't feel the $50 for the gimbal is worth it for your use case. If you're someone who sits stationary most of the time, you're not really moving around too much when you're using your camera, your webcam, I think the Link 2C is a really, really good option. I think this is probably the best option for most people who are going to be doing things like streaming and work. Unless you're doing a lot of presentations, I don't think the gimbal is going to benefit you too much, and I think the Link 2C does a fantastic job there. As mentioned, the sensors are the exact same, so the quality is not going to change between the two. It's more so choosing the one that fits your use case a little bit better. I think the Link 2C does a really, really good job, and at its price point of $149.99, I think it does a really, really good job. Now, with all that said, I really do hope you found this video helpful, and if not, I at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can leave those down in the comment section below, and I'll try to get to them all as quickly as I can. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, and thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you want to check out any of my other video reviews, you can go ahead and check out the playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.